Today on the operating table, I have this old J.C. Penney's radio that my dad was given for his 18th birthday, so mid-60s. And we were using it or trying it out at his house on FM, and we were only able to get output from one channel. So I went ahead and brought it home. I'm gonna see if I can fix it up, clean it up a little bit. There's a little bit of damage there. He doesn't really care about that. He just wants it to sound good so he can listen to this in his shop radio. No vacuum tubes, early transistor era stuff. So we're gonna, it's got a phono input, but no other auxiliary. So I've been online, I cannot find a diagram for this thing or a schematic, a free one, anywhere. I'm gonna assume that phono input is to a little tiny phono amplifier in there. Whatever, I'm going to put some put a frequency into that and see what I can get out and do some troubleshooting from there. The signal was extremely intermittent, only going towards the right speaker, nothing towards the left, and poking around in here. I was chasing the input through the phono inputs, through some resistors into the switch, and poking around. I could sometimes get this switch to give me sound, sometimes not sound, always at just the one speaker. And I would have videoed it, but after doing that about 6 times, I couldn't get it to repeat. So I'm sure these controls just have to be cleaned, and I had to remove the chassis from the case to do it, and that was a monster. Huge pain to do that. 5.5 millimeter sockets, who has that? So tiny little ignition wrenches to get this stuff out. And it looks like those indicator lamps have seen better days. Looks like they had, I don't know if that's paper covering or something, but I'll see if I can replace those indicator lamps. I'm not sure. For sure, all those controls are going to come off, get cleaned, checked out, put back on. I'll spot check these capacitors, especially the big ones, and then we'll see what's next. After removing and cleaning all of the switches and knobs, they work a lot better. They don't feel like they're full of gum anymore. That being said, oh, and I put them on a meter and tested them, and everything was pretty smooth. The potentiometers, the switches all worked as best I could. I'm still only getting one signal out. So the left channel is the tall square wave. The right channel is the one that's got nothing there. The balance knob, if I move that back and forth, you can see what it is. I mean, it's very smooth. Tone controls work. Everything seems to work except for this one channel. The volume knob, I'm about to tweak that now. However, while it works, if you go, it's got a lot of noise in that knob, and that's after a thorough cleaning. It's probably just going to be what it is. It's going to be one of those that every time you change the volume, you get a crackle, for a little bit while you do it, because I'm not going to take it apart and risk damaging it since it will work this way. I've just got to get that one channel going. And one of the light bulbs came on while tinkering with it. But the other one has not. I still think I need to try to find both of those 2 lamps. Ideally, well, I don't know. They probably have to be incandescent. You can tell how hot they get. They do some damage in there. I don't know if I'm going to be able to show this well while holding the phone, but here's the scenario. So I've got a 1 kilohertz square wave. It's not flashing in real life. So 1 kilohertz square wave going into the auxiliary ports for, well, it's the phono port actually for this radio, and we've got it turned on through there. This is the dummy load coming out of the dummy load. This is the output right there. It looks pretty fragmented right now because that's what I've been kind of screwing around with the volume knob here, but they're just screwing around with things. So look, 1 channel there, got it right. The top scope is for this probe right here. So I've narrowed it down on the volume knob. I'm going around, I'm like, okay, I've got a signal, on this side. You can see it on the other scope. I go to the other side of this stereo volume knob right here, the yellow wires, and I've got nothing up there. So I'm tracing these yellow wires back to the power supply board, or the amplifier board here. And this is the yellow wire coming out. There's nothing there. If I keep tracing it back a little bit, I get to, I think it's right here. Let's see here, where is the, yeah, so I touched this one and I've got a good square wave right there. That is one of those little capacitors. Let's see if you can see it. One of those little capacitors on the other side of that resistor right there. And the way I confirm that is by, I can't do it with my other hand, but by removing the dead channel from this, and so that I only have one channel actually going in from the signal generator. And that just shows me the one output right there. And when that one goes away, I know that I'm on the right side of this amplifier board. So I think we've got an open capacitor right here. Very excited. Let's change this and see what happens. I also failed to mention these are the output transistors right here, and I can feel these things. No heat on these two. These two right here getting warm. So, you know, it's only even, the signal's only even making it to one side of the amplifier board to even get to the output. And component tester says unknown damaged part. I've tried it about 4 times. ESR meter, open line, open circuit. So this one's definitely bad. I'm just hoping it's the only one that's bad, because these are a pain to get to. The old guy there, 25 volt at 1 microfarad. The closest thing that I had in a quality capacitor, it's an IC cap, 1 microfarad at 100 volts, and it's still smaller. So, you know, it's going to handle a lot more load and take up a tiny bit less space. I'm okay with that. So here's the next development. There's both the outputs. So now both channels are putting out a square wave, although that bottom one's pretty fuzzy. Don't worry about the flashing. That's just, I'm having trouble getting the timing just right to slow it down. But anyway, you can see that bottom one's a little bit messy there. So we've got both channel outputs, sort of. Now if we look at that top scope and I go and check the right channel, boom, there's a good, on the top scope, that's the right channel on the volume knob. Here's the left channel, the top scope. Look how tiny that is. I don't really understand. I've been going back and forth with the balance knob as well. So yeah, I'm just not really clear what the difference is or what else is going on. I'm concerned there's some more capacitors in there that need to be replaced. It's just a lot of hassle. So if we look at this board here, this is the amplifier board right there. Those things are just, they're jammed in there. The board, it might look big, I'm pretty zoomed in, but it's 3 inches by 2, maybe 4 inches by 2 on the back side of it. What they do on these old boards, a lot of times the through-hole components are pushed through, then the legs are bent over. So you can't just desolder and pull it straight out. You end up desoldering a bunch of them because legs are folded over each other. So you end up desoldering a bunch of them, trying to unfold the legs while not damaging the solder pads on those old boards, which is very difficult to do. And I think that's what I'll have to be doing though. But, you know, we're on the right track. At least we've got some sound output, even if it would probably sound bad. Hey, I wonder what that'll sound like. I'll put that on speaker. There we go. That's, yeah. You can hear it out of both sides for sure. And you see what that looks like on both sides output. That's, you know, let's just change the volume a little bit and play with this thing. The volume knob is definitely crunchy, and I've cleaned it. I'm not sure it's going to be able to get it a lot better without just replacing the potentiometer at all. I might try to take it apart and see if I can get it some better. Let's see. Here's balance right here. So you can see balance. It works. It changes it up. You know, it changes it about in the middle. Anyway, it'd probably be good enough for listening to FM radio on, but I'm going to try to get this a little better. Well, my next suspect is this little 0.22 microfarad, or is it a 2.2? What is that? 0.22 microfarad. Putting up here my component tester. It says it's a capacitor. It says it's 173 nanofarads. So that's off. I'm going to check its ESR real quick. Yeah, so the ESR, the equivalent series resistance on this thing, it's a 25 volt cap. It's 55 ohms. It tells you right there it's bad. It's got high SR. If we look down here at this chart, a 10 microfarad at 25 volts should be 5 ohms, so it should be less than that. So, yeah, we're way out of spec. I want to see if that doesn't improve this output signal. It should quite a bit. Unfortunately, the only thing I have for a replacement in a 0.22 microfarad is one of these cheap Chinese capacitors. All my high-quality ones, I don't have anything like that. The closest I've got is 2.2, which might be fine, but I really have no idea. or 0.1. So I'm going to put in the correct value capacitor in here. If it doesn't last that long, then we'll know what it is, and I'll buy some better ones. Well, I feel much better about that. Everything seems to work. If we look at that top scope, this is the channel that didn't work, right? Whoops, right there. That's the channel that didn't work. And the bottom one was the control that was working. They're a little bit different on the outputs. That may be out to the volume knob, and maybe because there's some more capacitors that are slightly out of spec or something along those lines. But looking at that output sine wave or square wave, let's see it, make it a sine wave, I think it's going to sound just fine, particularly because it's an old AM FM radio. We're not playing digital tracks on it or anything like that. I do not think there's going to be any issues with how it sounds. Feeling pretty good about it. Now, let's see if we can cram. Actually, I need to change, if I can figure out what kind of light bulbs. I need to take that and then cram all that thing back in the cabinet and make sure it works once I put it together. Started the cleanup process on this. Looking over a few things. There's a little veneer repair needs to happen in that corner. Little veneer chip out right there that I need to make something fit in there. But the main thing is down here at the bottom. This thing took a hit at some point. Smashed the plywood up, smashed that. So I was thinking about what to do with that. And I've got a way with a clamp and a block to kind of get that squarish. I think what I'm going to try to do is dribble some thin CA glue in there. It's 20 degrees in the shop today, so I'm going to have to kind of heat this stuff up with a hair dryer. Once that cures for a little while, then decide whether or not to mix up some liquid epoxy to fill in some gaps before perhaps putting in some of this two-part, walnut flavored epoxy putty. I may even end up taking this stuff in the house for a few hours, letting it warm up, and doing that in there once this glue kind of sets up in here. And then we got to try to figure out how to fix this metal that's damaged up in there. All right, I heated it up with the hair dryer, something I left it for an hour. I don't know. It's not great. I'm going to use some of that epoxy, go in there behind it, hopefully try to stabilize that some more. The only way to really fix that would be to completely dismantle this thing, cut out that piece of plywood, put a whole new face veneer across the front. I just don't think that's in the cards right now. The cabinet's as good as I'm really going to get it. I used some dark brown epoxy, and I had a little stain pen, so I darkened up some of that. But once I went over the entire thing with sandpaper, there's a lot of really light areas in this corner, and there's the veneer repair I ended up doing on this corner. I decided to mix up some tint, some alcohol and tint. These corners right here, I just used that epoxy on that stuff too. I think it'll look all right, once everything is done. And anyway, so I tried a little bit of it down here. I think that's going to look good. We're going to coat this whole thing in this brown tint, trans tint stuff, and then I'm going to go over that with my favorite aerosol lacquer, and we'll see what this thing looks like. Final check before putting it in the cabinet. New indicator lights on there. I'm running a square wave through right now. It's interesting the way the balance works. So I turn the volume up and down. It's mainly moving one channel, but the balance operates the other channel. So in practice and sound, I'm not exactly sure how that works. It doesn't seem to be, it seems to be normal, and everything is perfectly clean. Here's the tone controls on a square wave, so we know that the bass and treble stuff, you can see the differences. All that stuff is working great. Let me change this up to a 1K sine wave here, and yeah, this is how everything looks. I just noticed on the phone screen, it definitely doesn't look the same as it does in real life. It's not screaming by like that. Anyway, all right. I wonder if I change the time on that a little bit, if it would make a difference. Anyway, I'm satisfied with it. Everything is good. It's pulling, here we go. It's pulling 5.5 watts. Let's see, let's turn this volume up and see what it does. I'm trying to get this to where it's visible in there. So if I turn the volume pretty far up, I get 6 watts, 7, 8 watts, 8 watts of power. So, I mean, you know, it's not a powerhouse, but, you know, it's cool. All right, looking pretty good. And it's all new finery, polished, you know, repaired and polished cabinet. Pretty happy with that. Everything's back in. New dial lights, a little hard to see in this light. The stereo eye hasn't come on, but I don't really have an antenna in here, so it may not be picking up stereo, but it's picking up stations and they're in about the right place. So, pretty happy with that. We'll send her.